others will follow us. Shishi. They are English teachers, they don't need my translation. I'm getting so accustomed to getting translated. I had a young guy, I had a young lad at one of the high schools we went to. I mean, he was just a little guy, and he was translating for the student body, translating my English. I couldn't believe it. I mean, he wasn't even out of school yet. I said, you need to come to America. You could work at the United Nations. You could translate for us. So, okay, Lou. The very first thing I want to do is recognize my colleague. Ginny, where are you? Stand up. This young lady has worked with me on this. So she is an author also. Thank you so much. Last year, I'm a reader, and I read all the time. And I'm very interested in education, so if I see something about education, I generally will purchase it and read it. And last year I saw a book that I believe was published on Harvard that I read a review on, in probably the New York Times. The science of successful learning, make it stick. So when I saw that, I thought, oh, I need to find out more about that. One of the reasons I wanted to find out more about it was because I study Chinese. That is very difficult for me. So I thought, are there some tips, are there some ideas that I could use in the morning when I look at Chinese words or phrases? I think the real message, this is a book about what people can do for themselves right now in order to learn better and remember longer. The important point is this: you can learn how to learn. There are ways of learning that work better than other ways. And I know some of the things that I was taught when I was young really don't work that well. But I've used them all my life, and now I'm reading about new ideas. The point too, of course, is that we always say the responsibility of learning rests with you. With you. Each one of you is responsible for your learning. And I think it is so very important that we teach our children that they need to be responsible. No one else can do it for them. What is the Chinese saying that I like so much about you can open the door? A teacher can open the door, I think is all I'm saying. But you cannot bring the students through. They must enter themselves. You can, if you have a PowerPoint, you can click on it and go to Amazon and you can find the book. You can learn how to learn better. Let me repeat that. You can learn how to learn better. Learning is an acquired skill. It is something that I get by working hard. If I learn and I work, I become a better learner. So, the message there is that all of us and all of our students can learn. I am very, very interested in neuroplasticity, the ability of the brain to change. And we have, we'll speak about it a little bit at the end, but they did a program in La Crosse, Wisconsin, which is a city close to me, called the Compassion Project. And it's based on the work of a scientist at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, Dr. Davidson. And he was very interested in Buddhist monks. And the Dalai Lama is very popular in America. And so they were saying, how can these people become so compassionate and spend so much, dedicate their whole life to helping others? Does it change their brain? Are their brains different than yours or mine? And they had some of the long-time meditators with the Dalai Lama, and they put them in a lab, and they would wire, somehow they used electrical connections, and they wired them up, and they had them think about being compassionate, and they watched what parts of their brain lit up. And if you took a regular person like me, and you looked at mine, it would light up a little bit. But if you took someone who had been meditating for many years, one of these Buddhist monks, it would light up big, much bigger. So they thought, I think we can train people to be compassionate. That we can change them from less compassionate, less caring, to more caring people. So it was in lacrosse, they took the children. And they had them do an art project. They just had a little 8 by 12 canvas, and they said, think about compassion. What does it mean? And one child may have written, if I help my grandmother walk to her chair, or if I help a little old lady walk across the street, or if I help some young person learn how to do algebra, if I do something for somebody else, something compassionate, to think about that and then draw a picture. And they literally had all of the schools in lacrosse participated, and they had actually hundreds and hundreds of pictures of art drawn by students who were saying, this is how you can be compassionate. Smiling when you meet somebody in the morning. Helping somebody with their lesson. Going out into the community for a community event and helping. So they did this big project. But the deal is this: you can change your brain. We call it brain plasticity. I'll tell you another example. Older people that have a stroke, what we call a stroke, and maybe half of their body is like this, and they can't move half. We have examples of people who relearn how to use this part of their body. They made new connections, new pathways in their brain. And that's what neuroplasticity is all about. Our goal, of course, you want to acquire knowledge and skills, but more importantly, you want to have them available through memory. I mean, if I want to acquire knowledge of Chinese, then I must be able to pull it out of my memory to use it, or it is of no value to me. I need to be able to actually use it. So I want to acquire, I want to learn, but next week, I want to remember, so I have not forgotten. I'm repeating myself here, but you can learn how to learn. Learning is an acquired skill. One of the processes that they talk about in the book is what they call interleaving. So you see, I am writing A. I am reading B. And here I am writing, and here I am reading. So I'm going A, B, A, B, A, B. And I do that. I may, in the morning, if I am looking a little bit at Chinese, I might look at a character. How do you write the character for mountain? So I might practice. Oh, Sean, practice that. Or for exit, which I keep looking at on the highway sign. So maybe I would write. But then I would pick up a book. And maybe for the next 30 minutes I read. So I don't do the same thing all the time. I do one thing for maybe 30 minutes, and then I stop and I do something different. It can also be a different subject, but the point is you don't just simply sit there and do one thing all the time. You do that for a while, then you do something else. The word they're using in English today is interleave. When I was young, I was taught to do what is called mass practice. Over and 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 over again, I memorized things. Over and over and over and over again. To do what's called interleaving or distributed practice, one, then something different. A, then B. I just took different pictures. House, horse, horse. Again, do something for a while, switch, do something else. I might even do literature, mathematics, maybe literature. But I do not do literature. The research shows that, what the research will show is that if you do this, you will remember it in what is called short-term memory. But 2 weeks later, it may not be there. If you want it to go into what's called long-term memory, so that 2 weeks later you can bring it back, you're better off doing it this way. Matter of fact, I grabbed a calligraphy brush that I had there, just made this diagram that if you want to, if you do mass memorization, you really don't get too much mastery, but if you do it the other way, your retention will increase the further you go in that direction. So, again, we're trying to place things in long-term memory because that's where they need to be if we're going to use them later. I just gave an example. How do I do interleaving when I study Chinese? I taught myself at least to be able to write the Micah, yay, Grandpa Mike, and a couple of other simple things, but I wanted to be able to at least do this. But how do I do it? I do interleaving. I do different things. I might spend 30 minutes doing calligraphy, and then I might spend 30 minutes just listening to a tape, perhaps, that Essie has made for me, so I can listen to the sounds and the tones. So I mix them up on purpose. And I just put some examples here. I said, and I just made these up real quick. I will look at my notes or book and read. This is not a smartphone, it's simply an iPod, but I'm always keeping notes all the time. So a lot of times in the morning, I'll pull this out and look at my notes, or one of them. Then I'll just sit back and I'll have a cup of tea. And then maybe I will say, well, I want to make sure I remember how to write Micah Yeye or Ni Hao. So I practice. Now I might just, go for a walk for 30 minutes. Maybe I'll go for a walk down to the park and see if who's down at the park, if there's anybody that I know there. If I make it back, And I maybe have a psychology book. So now instead of doing Chinese, I may simply look at my psychology book. And I may take a break, have a snack, and read. I also do this. I will relax by reading something that I'm simply interested in reading for enjoyment. And I will listen to teacher Essie's MP3 in Chinese. You cannot imagine, Essie, how much this helps me. When I can hear your voice slowly pronouncing the words with the proper tones, they will stick. So I actually do this quite a lot. But I'm doing different things. I'm interleaving, if you wish. I'm working for 30 or 45 minutes on one thing and then changing. Now there's two things I'm actually practicing here. Because I'm doing, there are two words that are similar. Interleaving, variability. Interleaving, if I simply go from Chinese writing to Chinese listening and speaking, then I'm interleaving. But I'm also, sometimes I'll be going to something else like psychology or maybe even writing an English paper. So then I'm doing variability. They're very closely related, but it's very important. They talk about spaced repetition. The spaced repetition of key ideas is very helpful to remembering. It's kind of like interleaving gets related to that. But repeating things. You want to be able to repeat them. So, and we'll talk about it later, but if I'm reading a book and I read it once, some people will say, oh, I'm going to study it again, I take it up and I read it again. No. I read it once, and then I ask myself, do I know what it says? Do I know the main points? What are they? So I bring them back, and then I will wait. I will say it, but then I wait and I bring it back and I say it again and again. But I leave space in between. Maybe this morning, maybe I wait 2 days, do it again, wait 2 days, do it again, maybe I wait 1 day. But I want to do spaced repetition of key ideas. It's very helpful for long-term memory. We are saying here again, interleaving, spacing, variation. If you use practices like this, you will have more variation and it will trigger more reconsolidation and deeper learning. In other words, it's more likely to go to your long-term memory. I do not cram. I learned a long time ago that sitting for 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 hours before an exam cramming does not work very good. I simply don't do it. Here's something that I picked up about quizzes I thought was, and they said, you know, should I reread the chapter? No. What should I do? I should take a quiz on the chapter. Maybe I should look at the answer, the questions at the end of the chapter, and I should try to read them. But I should not look at my book or notes. I should bring them out of my memory. What happens? Well, right away you find out, oh, I know this. Good. Oh, I don't know this. Well, if you don't know something, then you go back and you check. But you kind of quiz yourself. This is the most important, effective way to move information to your long-term memory. It's that bringing it back, bringing it back, bringing it back into your mind that causes it to stick, be imprinted on your long-term memory. I just say here that I recommend frequent retrieval exercises, and here's something for teachers that really stuck in my mind. It's a simple thing, but when I was a young boy, and when I first left high school, I studied metallurgical engineering. I was at a very tough school, Michigan Technological University. And boy, we had quizzes every day. Almost every day we'd go into a chemistry class, into the lecture, and 5-minute quiz, 5-minute quiz. And they were all graded. Every time a quiz was given, it was graded. Well, what does this do? If I come in the morning and I give you a quiz, I say just 1 or 2 questions, but you're going to have a quiz, you're forced to bring back. You're forced to bring it back. Well, if I put a grade on it, you start studying more because you know in the morning that Mike is going to give you a quiz and therefore you prepare. Now, sometimes teachers will give quizzes, but they don't grade them. Or they will grade them, but not count them. They will tell you the answer and say, oh, how many got it correct? And you raise your hand. How many did? So, okay, well, no. If you're going to use quizzes with students, write down their score and keep a record of it for your grade book. Ungraded quizzes simply are not as effective. Low stake quizzes are great. Well, low stake meaning, you know, a test might have 100 points or 200, a quiz might have 5, or even 3 or 10. Low stake, not big test. Our goal is to move skills and knowledge. You want to move them from short-term memory into long-term memory. Move the new knowledge from short-term memory into long-term memory, where you can reach out next week and bring it back. I just begin to look here for some memory tools, some ideas that one could use, and they're probably familiar with you, but let's take a look at a couple of the things that these people talk about in the book. Visualization, this whole idea of making a picture in your mind. If you can draw a picture in your mind, you can kind of close your eyes and you can think, oh, you can see that picture. Maybe I can see the coffee pot in America, the teapot in Taiwan. But I got a picture. Coffee, tea. And then I remembered, oh, in one society they drink a lot of coffee, in the other they drink a lot of tea. Visualization simply meaning use mind pictures to help remember charts. Maybe I can close my eyes and see a chart, a bar chart. Steps in a math problem or whatever you wish to do. When a picture begins to form in your mind, when you can close your eyes and you kind of have a picture of that, maybe it's a mathematics formula, or maybe it's a picture of somebody in a story that you're thinking about, or the hero or the heroine, you start moving that to long-term memory. It's being improved, strengthened, and it's being formed. So it's an extremely powerful learning tool. And I sometimes will try it a little bit with the Chinese characters. I will try to close my eyes and say, oh, what does that look like? And it tends to help a bit. And this is where they talk about association, and the simplest one I could think of was the main food we would have, the basic food in America would be potatoes. We eat a lot of potatoes. And we drink a lot of coffee. And then I look at Taiwan, and I've got rice, and I've got tea. So I have an association. I'm associating this flag with these products. and that flag with those products. And I can visualize that, and I can bring that back in my memory. Here is an example of using what's called an acronym, but this is a very interesting one. I use it sometimes when I'm here. If I'm sitting talking to you and I just simply have met you for the first time, I might say, "Oh, tell me about your family." So the acronym now, what we call it is FORE, for, but okay, tell me about your family. What a person will do, it's very true in Taiwan, and it's also true in the United States. They like to talk about their family. So immediately a person says, "Oh, Mike, there's my student will say, there's my mother, my father, I have 2 sisters, maybe I have a brother." And that kind of is an icebreaker. That gets them started. And then when they stop, you say, "Oh, what school do you go to?" Or in your case, "Oh, you're a teacher. Tell me where you work. What do you teach? Oh, how long have you been teaching?" And then you might say, "Oh, gee, let's see, what do you do for recreation if you have time off on the weekend? What do? Do you play tennis?" You may start, "Oh, gee, I like to go to good movies," or maybe I jog or whatever. And eventually, you might say, "Well, gee, what makes you feel happy? What makes you feel good? What kind of things do you really like?" And what it does is it gets people talking about themselves. And if a person talks about themselves, they're usually pretty happy. So we say it's an icebreaker. And we say it's an acronym. FORE. So if I remember in my mind FORE, I think, oh, family, occupation, recreation, enjoyment. It's a way of remembering. Now, I'll tell you where this comes from. This was an example that is used by a large American insurance company, Farmers Insurance. They train insurance agents. And an agent that is selling insurance is successful if they convince people to buy their insurance. Well, you have to get people to talk to you. Get them interested, and you want them to like you. Then they are more interested in what you are saying, and they may buy your insurance. So they teach their agents, if you get in a group, and say they put you in groups and there was 4 or 5 of us, you do that. "Oh, tell me about your family, occupation." You get people talking about those things. So, but it's also a very good way to get things in long-term memory. FORE. Family, occupation, recreation, enjoyment. When learning is hard, you are doing important work. And I think the message I'm always trying to get it over. I like to talk about mathematics. And I get discouraged in America because the students don't want to sit at home at night and do algebra problems. Well, I'm here to tell you, unless you're very, 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 very intelligent, if you do not sit home and do algebra problems, you will not learn how to do algebra problems. So, I keep trying to say, if it's hard and you have to work very hard, it's going to work better, and it's going to be more meaningful and more important. So, we have trouble. I see so many students here go to cram school, and I'm thinking, wow, if we had a cram school where I live, there wouldn't be anybody there. Nobody would attend, because everybody wants to go out and play basketball or ride around in their cars or go see their girlfriend or their boyfriend or whatever. And again, when learning is harder, it is stronger and lasts longer. If it's easy to learn, it's not going to be all that important. But if it's hard, If I spend a whole bunch of time trying to learn how to say a sentence in Mandarin, well, I'll tell you what, if I have to work very hard and I finally learn it, it just sticks there. So, when learning is harder, it is stronger and lasts longer. The more, this one, they just say, the more effort that is required to recover a memory or to execute a skill, provided you are successful, the more the art of recalling or executing benefits to learning. So it says this, the harder you work, the better the result. And they do scientific research on this, but the simple thing is, the harder you work, the better your memory will be when it comes to long-term memory. One of the things that is often taught, I think it's important, is consolidation. You know, if I'm trying to learn some new skill, and I do it after I'm done, maybe after the test or after the exam, what happened? I got a great grade on the exam, maybe I got a poor grade on the exam. Okay, so I see what happened, what are the results? Then I say to myself, Mike, how did you study? What method did you use? Then I say, how did it work out? Was it good? Not so good? And then the big question, if I have to do this again, or if I were doing something similar, would I do it differently? Would I do it the same? Or would I do it different? You reflect upon your experiences, and you literally do this. You say, oh, we always do this. So just take a minute, stop, slowly think. 1, 2, 3, 4. What happened? What did I do? How did it work out? What would I do differently next time? They talk about what they call cognitive multipliers and embracing a growth mindset. And they were talking about the Beatles, the famous rock group that when I was in your age, when I was young, we were listening to the Beatles all the time. They tell me that the reason they were such excellent musicians, part of it is they were very talented. And McCartney and Lennon were just excellent, very highly talented songwriters. But they played in the cheap bars in Germany for many years before they became stars. And they would go into those bars, rough places, and they would play over and over and over and over again. And if they just played the same songs, people throw beer bottles at them. They had to learn new songs all the time because you had to try to keep the people listening. Well, they literally had done it probably 10,000 times. The same for a tennis player. I watch people doing Chinese yo-yos this morning. Wow, what a show. I don't know how many times they did that for practice, but I can tell you what, it wasn't 5, it wasn't 10, it wasn't 100. They literally have practiced that hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times, or they would not be able to do that. So, you just accept the fact that if you want to be an excellent musician, excellent with the Chinese yo-yo, very good in mathematics, work over and over and over again through time. That's what experts do. And we say, I think this is probably the most important lesson of all of the slides with students. And I'll just go, we say use learning goals, not performance goals. Praise hard work, not intelligence. It is more important that you convince a student to work hard than it is that you convince them they're intelligent. As a matter of fact, too much of this, too much of telling somebody how intelligent they are, and then they don't work as much. So what you want to do is you watch, and when you see somebody that has put a lot of effort or a lot of work into something, praise the work. Wow! Oh, Shuling, you sure worked hard. You really worked. Oh, I love that picture you drew. You must have spent a lot of time drawing that picture. Okay. So I talk about SDP, sustained deliberate practice, goal-directed. It's often solitary. I'm often working alone. But what you're doing, you're repeated striving to reach beyond your current level of performance. I do not care if next week I can speak Mandarin. But I do care if I can speak Mandarin better next week than this week. Okay? In other words, I'm always trying to just get a little bit better. The more we do, the more we can do. And we talk about brain plasticity, and all of the research tells us it's true. The simple truth is that effortful learning, if it's hard and you do it, will change your brain. It actually changes the inside of your brain. You build new connections and capability. And you see, when I was a kid, boy, we knew, oh, there's a smart student, she can read really good. Here's the dumb one, she can't read at all. Well, the reality is that this one can learn to get much better. You see, so we want our students to realize that they can actually make changes in their ability to learn. Not good at math, but you could be. You could possibly be. There's a book, and this one I have not studied, but called How Children Succeed. But I found this quote: success is less dependent on IQ, native intelligence, than on grit, curiosity, persistence. That's what we've been trying to say all along. Whether or not you are successful is more important on how hard you work. They say grit. That's like stick-to-itiveness, being willing to try again and again and again. Curiosity. Oh boy, yeah, I want to know something about these people in Taiwan. Well, maybe I should go out and find out. Maybe I should go meet them. Be curious. And persistent. I come back and I think, gee, my Mandarin's no better than it was last year. But I keep trying. I keep trying. So you keep be persistent. When you encounter roadblocks or adversity, and if you overcome it, then you've discovered an essential ingredient being successful. Again, this is the whole message of all of these slides. The power is in you, and you want to try to convince your students that they have the power to learn. This is kind of a subtle thing. More tips for teachers. They say, talk about learning, not education. And I think, again, really what the thing here is to make sure that when you're talking with your students, that you let them know that they are responsible. You can help them, but they are responsible. Yeah, we are constantly trying to reinforce or to teach a good individual behavior and responsibility. I like to say mind is all is mind, and I sometimes study Chan or Zen Buddhism, and when I do, they talk a lot about everything is in your mind. Well, the research, as I've said several times today, the research that's being conducted in the United States and elsewhere right now says, yes, your brain is plastic, it can change. But if you want to change it, you need to learn how to do it. And of course, hard work and effort is the key. But I think again, when I work with students and our teachers, I keep saying, you've got to convince these kids that they can learn. You've got to convince them that they have the ability. You've got to convince them they can do better. You need self-discipline, obviously. If you don't get up in the morning and go do your job and take care of your responsibilities. I was taught years ago to recognize my emotions. Now, there are cultural differences between people in Taiwan and the people where I live. One of the things I was taught a long time ago was to understand what was going on inside of me. If I am interacting with you, how do I feel inside? I better be aware of it, because if for some reason, I don't like, I better know that. Okay? Because it affects the way you relate. And I was taught that as a counseling psychologist, that always when you're working with somebody, try to be aware of how you feel inside. Keep your eyes on your goals, and of course, the old thing, work, 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 work. But practice, reflect. What did I do? How did I do it? How did it work out? Would I do it differently next time? Consolidate, and of course, the old story from Lao Tzu about one step, the longest journey is one step at a time. Looks like they were ready for our break.
我们